Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a true classic, The Postmaster by the legendary Rabindranath Tagore. This is just such a beautifully touching story about human connection, the pain of loneliness, and what happens when people are separated. I'm really excited to explore this one with you all, so let's just jump right in.
Real quick, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with a brief introduction, head over to the remote village of Ullappar, and then watch a really unexpected bond form between our two main characters. After that, we'll hit a major turning point with a sudden sickness, followed by an emotional departure. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a summary and a quick assessment.
All right, Part 1, Introduction and Hook. So by the end of our time together today, we're going to cover a few key things. We want to really understand the human predicaments in this story, basically the tough, unpredictable situations people find themselves in. We'll look at facing challenges with courage, picking up some narrative skills, and of course, building our situational vocabulary. Tagore's use of language is absolutely brilliant, so we're definitely going to highlight that as we go.
But before we meet our main characters, I want you to think about something for a second. Have you ever moved to a completely new place, maybe a new town or even just a new school, and felt incredibly lonely, like you just didn't belong? How did you cope with that? Just hold on to that thought and kind of put yourself in those shoes, because our main character is dealing with exactly that kind of intense isolation.
Moving on to Part 2, Ullappar Village and our characters.
Okay, so our story kicks off with a young man named Nanadalal. He's from the bustling city of Calcutta, but he's just taken a job as the postmaster in this super remote, tiny village called Ullappar. And guys, he feels like a total fish out of water here. His office is in this dark, dingy hut surrounded by dense jungle. As you can imagine, he is not loving the vibe of this place at all.
To really picture his world, let's look at two key vocabulary words. First up is thatched. This just means a roof covered with straw or dried grass. Our postmaster is literally living in a thatched hut, which is a massive downgrade from his city life. The second word is obsequious. This means being excessively eager to please, almost too obedient. And as you'll see, this word perfectly describes our other main character, a young girl named Ratan.
Tagore sets up this stark, brilliant contrast between these two. On one side, you've got the postmaster. He's educated, privileged from the big city, but he's also kind of arrogant, totally ill at ease, and terribly homesick. On the other side, there's Ratan. She's a sweet, orphaned village girl, maybe 12 or 13 years old, who does his housework just for a tiny bit of food. They are literally from two completely different worlds.
Which brings us to Part 3, the bond between them. So, despite being totally different, their shared loneliness kind of pulls them together. Every evening, the postmaster calls Ratan in, and they just start talking. They share memories. Ratan talks about her late father and her little brother, while the postmaster talks about missing his mom and sister. Through these evening chats, they basically become a surrogate family for each other. It's really quite beautiful.
And then, their relationship takes this incredible step forward. The postmaster decides to teach Ratan how to read. They do this every day at midday. They start with the vowels, then move on to consonants, and finally conjuncts. What's amazing here is that their dynamic completely shifts, right? It goes from master and servant to teacher and pupil. And Ratan, she looks forward to this every single day.
All right, Part 4, Sickness and Care. This is where things take a serious turn.
So the month of Shrevern rolls around, bringing these massive continuous monsoon rains. The whole village basically floods, and the postmaster falls seriously ill. In this moment, little Ratan steps up in a huge way. She basically takes on the role of a mother, staying up all night, giving him pills, cooking his meals, just nursing him with absolute dedication. But, and here's the kicker, the second he gets better, he decides the village is too unhealthy and immediately applies for a transfer. And that leads us straight into Part 5, the departure. So his transfer request actually gets rejected, but instead of staying, he decides to resign and leave anyway. When he tells Ratan he's leaving forever, her whole world just crumbles. She asks him, totally heartbroken, "Dada Babu, will you take me home with you?" And his response? He literally laughs and says, "How could I do that?" He's so blinded by his own arrogance and social class that he doesn't even see how deeply he's hurting her. Let's just pause here for a second. Put yourself in Ratan's shoes. How do you think she felt when the person she nursed back to health, the closest thing she had to family, just laughed at her desperate request? It wasn't just a laugh, you know. It was a complete dismissal of her love. It sends her into this deep, heartbroken silence. The climax is honestly just tragic. As the postmaster is packing up to leave, he tries to offer her some money. But Ratan, with tears streaming down her face, refuses it and just runs away. Later, as he's floating away on his boat, he feels a tiny ping of regret, but he brushes it off with this cold philosophical thought that, well, separations and death are just a part of life. But for Ratan, there's no philosophy to comfort her. She's just left waiting, clinging to the false hope that maybe, just maybe, he'll come back.
To really grasp the weight of this ending, let's look at two more words. First, fathom. To fathom means to understand something after a lot of deep thought. Poor Ratan just couldn't fathom his coldness. She couldn't understand how he could just walk away. And the second word is meekly, which means quietly, gently, or submissively. Ratan had meekly suffered through so much in her young life, but this rejection, it absolutely broke her.
All right, let's wrap this up in part 6, summary and assessment.
If we zoom out and look at the big picture, the core themes here are pretty clear. We're looking at the effects of extreme loneliness, the pure innocence of childhood through Ratan, the harsh reality of class differences, and that philosophical tragedy of human separation. These are the big takeaways Tagore really wants us to chew on.
Let's do a super quick review to make sure we've got the facts straight. Nanadalal, of course, is our postmaster. Ratan is the sweet orphan girl. Ullapoor is the remote village where it all goes down, and Calcutta is the bustling city the postmaster calls his true home.
Couple of quick trivia questions for you. Number 1, why did the postmaster ultimately resign? Yep, because his transfer request was rejected. Number 2, during what month did the continuous rains flood the village? That would be the month of Shraban. Keep these plot points in your back pocket.
And finally, I want to leave you with a bit of a creative challenge. For your homework, try writing a short letter from Ratan's perspective to the postmaster after he's left. Really tap into her true feelings and express what she couldn't say in the moment. It's a great way to flex those empathy and narrative muscles. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me for this explainer today. Catch you next time.